is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33, and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay, yay!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protest and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, I best align.
You are to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and chief White House correspondent. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe. Subscribe to a More Perfect Union podcast. That way, I promise you, you'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. Happy Monday to everyone out there. It's been a very, very, very busy news cycle. It's been a very, very, very busy news week. For those of you that follow me on social and follow KBLA on social, I'm sure you saw, I'm sure you've been tracking a lot of the anxiety-inducing activity in Washington, D.C. It is unfortunately becoming increasingly militarized, increasingly federalized. I'm talking about the National Guard that's been federalized by President Trump. And, you know, so many of you already know that Washington, D.C. is a place that I call home from time to time. I live part-time in D.C. and part-time here in L.A. And let me tell you something. It's great to have a little bit of respite, have a little bit of distance from Washington, D.C. at the moment, because that's a lot to absorb. It's a lot to take in. It is it can be very disorienting. Seeing Union Station, which is not far from where I live, suddenly you see military trucks that are right outside Union Station, where the Uber and Lyft pickup typically is. There are military trucks. That's not normal. And if it can happen in Washington, D.C., if it can happen here in Los Angeles, it can happen anywhere in the country. And that's why this is such a big story. But it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, NBC News is reporting that Trump has ended talks with the Ukrainian president and European leaders, saying he plans to set up a Zelensky-Putin meeting. This is a very encouraging sign for folks who've been following this very closely. You might have seen President Zelensky meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office earlier today. One of the goals that seemed apparent was a trilateral meeting, a meeting between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. It seems that things are trending in that direction. President Trump held a bilateral meeting with the Ukrainian president today at the White House for about an hour this afternoon, discussing a path to end the war in Ukraine. Zelensky was later joined by European Commission President, the NATO Secretary, the UK Prime Minister, the French President, Italian Prime Minister. They all stressed the need for security guarantees in any peace deal. And so Trump said the initial steps were underway to set up a meeting with Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Following that meeting, Putin and Trump met in Alaska just this past Friday for a summit that Trump called productive, though no ceasefire deal was announced. He called it productive. A lot of people who were there in attendance would beg to differ. But this matters because we, the people, we, the taxpayers of America, we, people of conscience that believe that it's not a good idea when a foreign power is able to invade the sovereignty of another nation and to try and take their land. We as Black folks, we certainly know a lot about having our land taken by folks just because they want it. And so, I'm obviously simplifying what this conflict in Ukraine is all about, but I'm simplifying it so that we all understand what it's about. And what we as a country have been at least invested in. And so we'll continue to keep our eye on that story as it develops. But in other news, USA Today is reporting that Hurricane Aaron is growing into a category 4 for if you have any family, if you have any friends, if you have anybody in this hurricane path in North Carolina, you may want to reach out to them to make sure that they have what they need and that they're listening to all these warnings. Hurricane Aaron intensified and it grew in size just today, as people fled North Carolina's Outer Banks, and forecasters warned of life-threatening rip currents and surf conditions along the entire East Coast. After losing some intensity over the weekend, Aaron strengthened back into a category 4 storm with a maximum sustained wind of 140 miles per hour. Now, I remember tracking the story just this weekend, and I thought that it was, moving out to sea and that folks on the East Coast didn't have to worry about this hurricane. Well, conditions changed, and that's exactly what happened. Forecasts show that the storm getting bigger and stronger as it gradually turned north on a path between the United States and Bermuda. The first hurricane to form this Atlantic season and the first to become a major storm. Aaron was located just this afternoon about 700 miles southwest of Bermuda and a little over 800 miles from southeast Hatteras Island. That's the barrier island on the Outer Banks. They were placed under a mandatory evacuation as officials warned of possible flooding and tropical storm conditions. These are, the final weeks of summer. And so I'm sure there are a lot of people out there at Outer Banks enjoying their vacation. And so, again, if you have friends and family that are in North Carolina that are at Outer Banks, you may want to reach out to them, send them a text, give them a call and make sure they're good and that they're taking these evacuation mandates very seriously because we don't want anybody to be in harm's way. When we come forward, I'm looking forward to inviting back our More Perfect Union contributors, Isaac Wilson. He's a Democratic strategist and former South Carolina Democratic Party chair, as well as William Godwin. He is a former White House fellow and former city council president for Gary, Indiana. I want to talk to these two about Texas Democrats who are now ending their 2-week walkout over gerrymandering in the U.S. House map plan. And there was something that President Trump said today in the Oval Office about mail-in ballots. Both of these stories are a sign of the times when it comes to the state of our American democracy, the state of our elections. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with our contributors when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Hit me! National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and you're looking at William Godwin. He is a former White House fellow and former Gary City Council president and a contributor here on A More Perfect Union. Welcome, William.
Thank you. It's good to be here. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Thank you for being here. And before we get into some of the headlines that everybody's talking about, I just wanted to take a minute to really amplify some of the work that organizers in Washington, D.C. Are leading right now. I'm not sure if folks have heard about Free DC. They, along with organizations like the Advancement Project, the Anti-Racist DC, DC Action, Critical Exposure, the Black Swan Academy, Police Free Schools in DC, they've all come together And there's a Know Your Rights training that they are hosting in Washington. I'm sorry, they're hosting at 6 p.m. It's on Zoom. It's on Zoom. If you go to Free DC Project on Instagram at Free DC Project, you should follow them, and you can get the link to join that Know Your Rights Youth Center training. It's all about keeping our community safe, informed, and powerful in the face of this federal overreach. I have certainly been on cable news, and I've even taken this question directly to the President of the United States around making sure that young people are safe, because we know that federalized law enforcement, they are not trained in local policing. And there's a lot that can go wrong in the process, and we don't want our sons and daughters, nieces and nephews, and young people getting caught in the middle of that. And so with that, William, for a long time, you've been a long time resident of Washington, D.C., though you shuttle back and forth between the Midwest and D.C. these days. What's it been like for you to watch this increasing militarized presence in the nation's capital?
I think it's sad. I think that I was actually on the plane headed to D.C. a few days ago with a lot of parents of Howard students preparing to enroll. And the sentiment was very clear. Folks were like, okay, letting their children know. There was a discussion about being careful, being aware, being mindful, having your ID on you. And so I think people are on edge. There's definitely a cautionary spirit about what's happening. But I think from the bigger picture, this is the beginning. This is a test case to spread this type of activity across the country. And so I'm hopeful that DC will be able to be resilient, and they're limited in terms of what they can do compared to a lot of other cities and states, which have greater amounts of sovereignty, right? Greater degree of sovereignty. But it is a test case, and it certainly is cause for concern.
Yeah. There are some people that are referring to it as, a takeover of DC police. Other folks are calling it a straight up occupation. How do you see this? I mean, in addition to being a former White House fellow and a former elected official in Gary, Indiana, a local government that works very closely with local police, because that's one of the departments that you all oversaw. Talk to us about this idea of an overreach, and whether or not you are buying the argument that we're hearing from the Department of Justice that the president has a right to take over the authority of the local police. So many folks pushing back, including the Attorney General of Washington, D.C., the Mayor of D.C., a lot of activists saying, no, you don't. Read the Home Rule Act more closely. How do you see it?
I think they're right. I was glad that the D.C. Attorney General, with the support of Mayor Bowser, pushed back on the Attorney General's suggestion that they would put in a new chief or remove the current D.C. police chief. It seems it's very clear from the home rule law that the chief remains. And the reality is that across the country, the federal government, various parts of the federal government that do law enforcement, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, or DEA, they're always U.S. Marshal Services, work with local police departments. And in many cases, the police will have a liaison, or they'll have a dedicated officer that they've assigned to a federal task force. So it's not unusual for there to be a relationship between local policing and federal services. Here, it seems to be kind of a cooperative agreement, right, where the president is able to, in the case of an emergency, right, we can define what that means, is able to have use of, right, the DC Police Department, not control over, but use of. And I think finding that distinction and towing that line will be very key for DC local government. But I'm hopeful that in the bigger picture, it will make Democrats in Congress in particular more serious about giving DC statehood, because we assumed that something like this would never happen, but clearly they have very little rights, right, compared to other law-abiding, tax-paying citizens around this country.
And I think that's worth noting. That's worth putting a finer point that DC, unlike any other American city, the Congress, they have to go to Congress for approval of their budget. The relationship between the DC mayor and the president of the United States is very unique in that way. And so for folks who are less familiar with the DC home rule law, it really makes for a very challenging relationship short of DC statehood. I want to stick with you on in terms of applying this local governance lens for a moment, William. We know that late last week, the Washington, D.C. Police Chief, Pamela Smith, she issued this executive order allowing the Metropolitan Police officers to conduct traffic stops, allowing the ones who conduct traffic stops to notify Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to notify ICE about undocumented immigrants that they encounter. I asked the president straight up if his administration pressured the chief of police to put out this executive order to change this policy. Is it your sense that this is what the Trump administration is looking to do, working through local law enforcement nationwide?
Yes, they have a bullseye, right, on sanctuary cities. And so cities that have been immigrant friendly, that have not traditionally been supportive of law enforcement, federal law enforcement efforts to capture, detain, remove immigrants because of sanctuary city laws, are definitely on the radar of the Trump administration. I don't know, but it may very well be the case that the chief is trying to be, and probably with the support of the mayor, to be proactive, to go ahead and get ahead of what they know is coming, perhaps to try to show some willingness to work with the administration on a policy goal that they very clearly have, with, I'm sure, the aim of ending this as soon as possible. I'm certain that this president is very much about results and having something to show for his effort. And so if they can show they arrested X number of folks or deported X number of people within a certain amount of time, this will probably end, right, in 2 or 3 months or less. So it might be a strategy to simply get in there, give them the early wins that he wants, give him the tweet that he wants to be able to send out, or the retruth, and move on with this, because I don't think this can go on for the rest of the year.
Well, I mean,
it could.
It looks like there's no end in sight. I mean, we're seeing not a decrease in the presence of National Guard in Washington, D.C., but rather an increase in the presence of the National Guard. In fact, we're starting to see governors like the governor of Mississippi, among other Republican governors, that are pledging their support to the president, pledging to send hundreds of additional National Guard folks to Washington, D.C. to support the president's mission in taking control of the Capitol. How is it that the administration is able to fly above the fray when folks raise the question of, wait a minute, how come y'all weren't doing all this on January 6th? Actual insurrection, right, at the U.S. Capitol. I mean, it is the audacity, the audacity to marshal these kind of resources to really fight against a boogeyman situation.
Yeah.
We all know that in any urban city, that crime happens. Crime happens in all cities, right? And yes, coming out of the pandemic, there was an uptick in crime in Washington, D.C., among other cities, right? But we have seen, according to the data, that crime has been coming down. It's been moving in the right direction. And to see someone in a position of power and influence and authority sort of just make up his own facts and say, no, crime is bad, as if those of us who live in Washington, D.C. Don't understand what's really going on in our communities. Talk to us about the dangers of a president, arguing that the nation's capital is experiencing a clear and present danger, when in fact this is the same person that we the people have to trust.
Right.
We have to trust when there's a national security crisis. If we can't trust him on this, then what does that do to not just our trust in this president, but our trust in the presidency when it comes to a real national security crisis?
Well, I think we're seeing this all across the federal government. I mean, very clearly, Kash Patel, the FBI director, months ago, right, talked about how great the crime was going down because of their great efforts and because of the president. So this alternative facts, right, is an ongoing narrative within this administration. You look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right, the firing of the chief there. And so we see this again and again, and it calls on us to present the facts in a neutral, unbiased, clear way, even when traditional mainstream media will not do it. And so we have to use the methods that are at our disposal to get the facts out there and to help people decipher fact from opinion and from outright lies.
When we come forward, we're separating the fact from the fiction when it comes to the heavy lift that Democrats have heading into the 2026 midterm election. Today, Texas Democrats said that they were ending their 2-week walkout over gerrymandered U.S. House maps. Plus, right in the Oval Office today, Trump vowed to end the use of mail-in ballots ahead of the 2026 midterm election. We're going to get William Godwin's take on this and more when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott says the city has cut 3,500 vacant properties since 2020, now down to about 12,500. Speaking at the Maryland Association of Counties conference, he highlighted the $3 billion Refrain Baltimore plan with Black Governor Wes Moore's administration and private developers to eliminate the rest over 15 years, though challenges like rising homelessness remain. Atlanta rapper Young Thug will have nearly $150,000 in cash, luxury cars, and jewelry returned after they were seized in his 2022 gang and racketeering case. His attorneys argued prosecutors missed the 60-day deadline for a civil forfeiture hearing. He will not get back the guns or YSL-themed jewelry. And a new plaque in Troy now honors Black soldiers who fought in the Civil War. The Ohio historical marker was unveiled Saturday at Riverside Cemetery, where 20 of those veterans are buried. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
A crash in Mid-City on the 10 eastbound before Western. It's out of lanes in the center divider. Delays out of Santa Monica getting away from Centinela, and westbound slowing, backing up off of the 5. Now, we're also looking at the drive on the 405. Southbound slowing in West LA, leaving Santa Monica Boulevard all the way to the 605. And northbound delays from about Washington Boulevard out of Culver City as you continue to the 5 merge into Sylmar. It's also tough along the 91 eastbound in Anaheim. Kramer-Glassell, you're on the brakes all the way to Green River.
This season, San Diego is playing at home, and you are on the roster. Don't miss the Padres, Wave FC, San Diego FC, and the Blue Angels at the Miramar Air Show. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Funds.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford made his practice debut Monday morning. The 37-year-old Stafford was unable to practice until Monday because of an aggravated disc in his lower back. Rams coach Sean McVay declined to say how much Stafford will practice the rest of the week. Stafford is still listed number 1 on the Rams depth chart for quarterbacks. McVay has yet to confirm that Stafford will start for the Rams in their season opener September 7th against Houston. If Stafford isn't ready, the Rams backup quarterbacks are Jimmy Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett. Auburn University announced plans Monday to retire the number 2 jersey of former NFL quarterback Cam Newton. Newton played at Auburn before his 12-year career in the NFL. Newton was NFL MVP in 2015 when he was with the Carolina Panthers. Newton's jersey will be retired on October 11th during halftime of Auburn's home game against Georgia. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
no warrant, no key, my privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights. Hey, we all got rights.
Thinking about going electric? Now is the perfect time. Electric vehicles cost less to run, don't need gas, and need fewer repairs than gas-powered cars. You can also save with federal and state tax credits, and in some areas, qualify for rebates on home charging stations. To learn more, visit www.breathesocal.org. That's www.breathesocal.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and always a pleasure to be in conversation with A More Perfect Union contributor and White House fellow William Godwin. He's also the former Gary City Council president. William, we know that the Democrats have been in the wilderness, the political wilderness, since the November 2024 election. One little glimmer of hope that folks believe might signal that the Democrats might be getting their mojo back. It's when Texas Democrats engaged in a walkout over redistricting, and they seem to have captured the attention of a lot of folks across the country. Now, the Associated Press is reporting that Texas Democrats are ending that walkout over redistricting as California prepares to retaliate. Texas Democrats, they ended their 2-week walkout today that stalled Republican efforts to redraw congressional districts as a part of a national partisan brawl over President Trump's desire to reshape the U.S. House maps to his advantage. Did the Democrats give up too soon?
Yes. I know that it's a big sacrifice. In fact, Sunday before last, I was in church with, I think, 2 or 3 of the members of the Texas state legislature who were visiting Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago. And of course, there was a lot of support, right, in the faith community there, and faith communities and national organizations across the country supporting them. And I get it, though. $600 a month salary, the threats of penalties, I'm sure the harassment. There was a bomb threat, right, in a hotel, I believe in Chicago. And so it must be tremendous pressure. Most of these folks, you know, have real jobs because they're not a full-time legislature, so they have families. And I'm sure it was very strenuous to do this. However, there's a part of me that wishes they could have kept this going for a month or 2 months to really show that we're not going to give in quickly. California is making plans, but that requires a vote, to my understanding. Folks to agree with the maps that are being presented. We know Texas is going to get exactly what they want. They don't need a public referendum on it, if you will. They will simply pass those maps. I'm sure it'll be tied up in litigation for a very clear gerrymandering attempt. So I wish it could have lasted longer, but I am sensitive to the realities of a part-time state legislator.
Now, dozens of Texas Democrats, they left for Illinois, as you just mentioned, and elsewhere on August 3rd to deny Republicans their attendance, the attendance that's necessary to vote on redrawn maps, intended to send 5 more Texas Republicans to Washington. For folks who are really into Robert's Rules of Order, you have to have quorum in order to do business. And they knew the rules, and they used the rules to their advantage. Now, California has a proposal that's intended to increase the number of Democrats that may have an advantage in going to the U.S. House of Representatives by 5 seats, effectively neutralizing potential Republican gains in Texas. Was this the right move and the right time?
Yes. And in fact, I read a passage earlier, a few days ago, by former Attorney General Eric Holder to that effect, right? He's been really big on election law and integrity in our system and anti-gerrymandering. But at the end of the day, if you're going to have to fight fire with fire, we have to be aggressive. I think for a long time, the Democrats have said, oh, let's do the right thing. Let's not do what they're doing. But we are really at the crossing point. We're at the inflection point of American democracy. When you have a president bold enough to ask a governor to give me 5 seats to ensure that I get my policy agenda moved forward, regardless of what the will of the people is within those districts that had already been established according to the census, right? Our national and state precedents. We're in new territory, right? This wasn't a private phone call. This wasn't a nudge. This was a very public, in-your-face, unashamed attempt to politically gerrymander, right? A significant amount of districts in Texas, which will have voter dilution impact on both Black and brown communities, and a terrible impact, obviously, on ensuring that voters are really getting their will heard in the U.S. Congress. And so, given the agenda, given what we've already seen, given the unpopularity of the big, beautiful bill, I think Governor Newsom is making the right call in saying this is different. This should not be the norm. And Attorney General Holder, former Attorney General, had that same message. But it certainly is what the response needs to be at this time.
And I suspect that's probably part of the reason why they're saying we're going to draw these districts so that it all balances out. So that Republicans aren't going to have an additional 5, right?
Exactly.
If they're writing in 5, we're going to write in 5. If they wrote in 10, we're going to write in 10, right?
And it may happen in Indiana, where I'm sitting right here, right? Vice President J.D. Vance was here last week in Indianapolis. And my congressional district, the 1st congressional district in Indiana, is one of 2 out of the 9 congressional districts that are Democrat in Indiana. So, we're trying to do the 5 to 5, but let's not discount what could happen in Indiana, where it was very easy. My congressperson has won by 10,000 and 14,000 votes, right, in previous elections. He's only in his 3rd term. So you could see a system where they go down the South, right, paralleling the Illinois border, and they're able to split up what is a pretty strong Democratic community in Northwest Indiana bordering Chicago.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris, recently was at, I think, a Teamsters event, and she seemed to endorse the Fight Fire with Fire plan forward by Democrats. I'm curious as to how you think President Trump's remarks in the Oval Office are going to play in terms of motivating Democrats to move forward with that plan, all steam ahead. Reuters reporting that President Trump vows to end the use of mail-in ballots ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. It seems to me that the president is showing his hand.
Very
He's
much.
saying, okay, this is how I'm going to maintain my grip on Washington. What we're going to do is we're going to have Republican-controlled state legislatures draw in more favorable Republican seats. In addition, we're going to put an end to vote-by-mail ballots. We know that the president pledged today to issue an executive order to end the use of mail-in ballots and voting machines ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, a move that's likely to disproportionately favor the Republican Party. Correct me if I'm wrong, William, but my sense is that elections are really facilitated by local governments.
Yeah.
It's not the federal government that facilitates elections. It is largely happening on the county level. And so help me understand how much of a threat this executive order from Trump really is.
I think it's a weak threat. As you indicate, states control and counties and localities operate, right, with the support of states, how their elections will go. I mean, even some states allow former felons, right, to run for U.S. Congress. Some don't. So we have a variety of rules that go state by state with what can happen. I think it's a big sovereignty question. It's a tremendous overreach. An executive order is only that, an order. It's not a law. It's not a statute. It's not a change to our Constitution where that right would be taken away from states. So I think it's bluster. It might be a signaling device to states where Republicans have control, like Texas, to make their laws even more difficult. And I'm not sure the status of mail-in voting in Texas. But there are a lot of states where they have control over legislatures who might take up legislation to either make it very, very difficult for mail-in ballots or to eliminate it altogether.
But William, I mean, this is what I don't seem to understand. It's not like just Democrats vote by mail.
Right.
You have Democrats, you have Republicans, you have independents. Now, obviously, it's very popular among Democrats. And when we look at vote by mail ballots, Democrats seem to perform better than Republicans and independents, but everybody utilizes it. In fact, I think more Republicans voted by mail this last election in 2024 than 2020. And so, how do you think Republicans are going to take to this? I'm sure there are a lot of Republicans in districts where maybe they squeaked by.
Right.
The idea of eliminating vote by mail ballots may not bode so well for them.
I agree. I mean, the president himself votes by mail, right? So I think that many local election officials, Republican and Democrat, are tired of being told what to do by an overbearing federal government. They run elections almost every year, usually 3 out of every 4 years. There's a county race, a state rep race, a local city council, or a school board race. So they know how to do elections. They've been doing it for a long time. And it's been shown over and over again that there is very little to no fraud happening in these elections, certainly none that is decisive in deciding who the victor is. So I think it's a lot of bluster. I think you'll see bipartisan frustration at the state and local level. And I believe that folks are going to do what they need to do. And some of this assumption with the mail-in ballots, especially out of 2020, is changing because it is becoming more popular for folks of all political parties, rural, suburban, urban, coast to coast. So I think that this is all, I believe, a larger set of distractions from the Epstein files and really the failure of this administration to make their legislation attractive to the American people. So there seems to be a fear and a concern that obviously what they're doing is not something that the American people are very much interested in.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, and it's also worth noting this is the same president who said when he was running, all you got to do is vote for me this time. You don't have to worry about it. Right. And so is this the other side of that? You don't have to worry about it because, I want to get rid of vote by mail ballots. I want to get rid of certain voting machines. I want to have Republican controlled state legislatures draw in more seats that are more favorable to Republicans that are about my agenda. Yep. Right. I mean, when you put all this together, it amounts to anything, but a free and fair election.
Absolutely. And it's dangerous. It's scary. And I think we have to remain vigilant. And I believe that Democrats in particular have for too long not focused enough on state and local elections, right? And that's often where these big decisions are being made, whether it's the certifying of ballots, whether it's what types of rights you have as a voter, early voting dates, all of that. And so we have to start thinking 5, 10, 20 years about how we take more power, or at least don't have super majorities or be in super minorities within state legislatures across the country.
I think you're right. And speaking of folks that are a part of state legislatures across the country, I just received a note that a Connecticut state representative is speaking out after apparently receiving threats over the weekend. We're talking about Representative Corey Paris. He is a House Democrat who serves Stamford, Connecticut. His team said that he's been subjected to harassment stemming from a social media post that he made warning of an increased ICE presence in the city. These threats, allegedly made by an extremist group, came after Paris posted on social media that Stamford residents should be aware of ICE agents in the city. We are living in a time where apparently when elected officials simply inform their constituents that there will be an increased federal presence, whether we're talking about ICE or anybody else, apparently that's the thing that attracts a whole nother level of harassment on social media. Since then, he's been the subject of another post that has been shared more than 20,000 times, calling for his arrest. The news station in the area, they obtained this exclusive recording of a very threatening phone call. And so, this is unfortunately a sign of the times. Yes. And I just want to connect the dots between this Connecticut state representative and the courage to be able to inform his constituents of an increased presence from ICE agents. It's no different from the courage of these Texas state Democrats, who fled the state in order to really raise public consciousness around what was happening in Texas and what the far-reaching implications would be, not just for the people of Texas, but for we the people of the United States. We pride ourselves in being a beacon of light to the world. We, for so long, have wagged our finger at nations around the world that did not practice free and fair elections. The fact that we are essentially writing the blueprint for how to skirt around the possibility of a free and fair election. I want to give you the final word on this, William. Doesn't that fundamentally undermine our ability to be a force for good, a force for democracy around the world?
If we surrender, if we who believe in free and fair elections surrender and don't fight back, don't do what we need to do to preserve early voting, to preserve mail-in ballots, to preserve states and localities controlling how, who, and what, right, and when can vote, right? If we sit by them, it's our fault. And we are to be the canaries in the coal mine to speak out. And so as long as there is a force of folks who are willing to speak out and to fight back, I believe that we still have some moral high ground. But it is on the edge of the cliff. And if we're not able to show some wins, to show some gutsiness, like what we're seeing with Governor Newsom, like we're seeing with the governor of New Hampshire, right, who also was challenged to do some gerrymandering, then we will have lost the moral high ground. But we have to continue to fight.
And I would even also add to that short list the governor of Vermont, a Republican who turned down 2 requests, not 1, but 2 requests reportedly to send National Guard folk to Washington, D.C., right? And so, look, for folks out there who are listening, who say you ain't never have nothing good to say about no Republicans, that's not the case.
Right.
We give credit where credit is due here, but the bar is also very low.
Very.
There are a lot of quiet Republicans out there. I mean, there are a lot of Republicans in the witness protection program
right.
Since November 5th, 2024. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to William Godwin, White House fellow and
former White House fellow. Let's be clear.
Oh, we not get you in trouble. Former White House fellow and former Gary City Council president. We always thank you for joining us here and making us just a little bit smarter.
Thank you. Enjoyed the conversation.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, the quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. PTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, also known as AD, a type of dementia that affects memory, thinking, and behavior, making everyday tasks challenging. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? There are things you can do to help reduce your risk for developing AD. Managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure is crucial. Staying physically active, maintaining social connections, eating a healthy diet, and keeping your mind engaged with activities like reading or puzzles can all contribute to brain health. It's also important to recognize some common signs and symptoms of early AD, such as forgetfulness that causes problems with everyday life, asking the same question a few times in a row, and difficulty concentrating on basic tasks. If you see these signs in yourself or loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatallzearly.com. That's treatallzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. The quiet part out loud here. Well, I think we've already said it. There are deliberate efforts that are afoot to make voting more complicated, to make us more confused about what the rules are. And this latest story, as reported by the Associated Press, put a finer point on it. You see, conservative network Newsmax agrees to pay $67 million in a defamation case over a bogus 2020 election claim. The conservative network, again, will pay $67 million to settle a lawsuit accusing it of defaming a voting equipment company by spreading lies about President Trump's 2020 election loss. That's according to court documents that were filed today. The settlement comes after Fox News, the Fox News channel, you might remember, they paid $787.5 million to settle a similar lawsuit in 2023. And Newsmax paid the court what was described as a $40 million to settle a libel lawsuit from a different voting machine manufacturer, Smartmatic, which also was a target of pro-Trump conspiracy theories on the network. All right, now listen, these are the same folks that are getting on air and they're saying stuff that's not true, right? Well, guess what? The court says you lied, and now you have to pay for it. Let's not let it have to bounce to the courts. Let's do what we need to do to show up and to stay informed about efforts that are afoot to thwart our ability to have free and fair elections here in this country. When we come forward in our next hour, you don't want to miss my interview with the legendary Spike Lee. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. California lawmakers returned today to review a proposed congressional map that targets, including Rep. Kevin Kiley, who says voters don't want to go backwards.
A poll yesterday showed that overwhelmingly Democrats, Republicans, and independents favor